G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 28th of September 2025. The month is almost over, and as we're seeing intensification, the greater number of drones and missiles have been reported by Ukraine than in previous attacks. However, there's a strange story out of Russia in which Sigouri, the Russian defense minister, he actually said Ukraine is lying about the number of missiles it shot down. They reported more missiles shot down than Russia actually fired, which is strange because Russian policy, particularly the defense ministry, they don't release casualties, they don't release number of drones and missiles fired, they don't release any information beyond a handful of videos. Most of those are in Russian on Telegram, which I have problems showing on YouTube. I don't know why others get away with it, but as you may know, I've had trouble with my channel on YouTube. It was taken down by... YouTube doesn't say what happened. They just said, hey, your channel's... your account, my account, boom, unable to access. No explanation, so I go to reactivate it. Over a month or so passes, and when it is reactivated, all my videos are gone. In the meantime, there was no activity on the account. Couldn't access it. I honestly don't know what happened. It's probably like what happened to a lot of my early videos on Rumble and that, is that they just don't like, and I don't know what it is, footage from the war. Could have been my own country censoring me, because I've seen other people post videos of... and I've even seen my own news services post videos. It is rather bizarre, because there was actually no copyright claim. And also I've been getting lately some feedback on comments. Yeah, I'm premiering videos and I'm not getting the comments. The best place to comment is not the live chat. I either don't see it or I don't get it. And for some reason, people post the live chat and best place to comment is the comment section. I know people like to live chat. If it's not a live stream though. Yeah, I premiere a video. Best place, of course, to chat is on YouTube. I don't get the chats on Rumble all the time, and I don't get the chats on X all the time. And other platforms, I can't monitor them all. Unless somebody's got a all-encompassing where I can sit and watch all the chats and upload a video. Yeah, it's better if I just upload videos, I think. All right. So we have Zelensky, being the narcissistic hypocrite that he always is, condemning the violent and deadly Russian attacks on Ukraine. The aggressor will be defeated. Never mind that he attacked Moscow and Russia's responding to Russian oil. So, it's hypocrisy. course, Ukraine is working out a deal to sell drones to the US. And I mean, again, this is Zelensky just trying to find a way to reach into US taxpayer pockets. Now, every day there are funerals across Ukraine, and of course, the pomp and pageantry is to delude the public that his life was worth the sacrifice. Meanwhile, the country dies because Ukraine wants to wage war against the people of Donbass. If it wasn't for the 2014 coup, maybe even if it wasn't for if it really comes down to, if it wasn't for the Ukrainian militias backed by Barack Obama, there would be no war. Russia never invaded until 2022. The war started long before then. If Ukraine had given up Crimea and the Donbass peacefully, they wouldn't have lost so many lives. But see, the UN stands for useless nut jobs. NATO, not another terrorist organisation. SBU, silly bastards in Ukraine. They're all nut jobs who think they're carrying out some greater good. Not saying Russia is an innocent babe in the woods either, but I'm just saying the people who have the power to be adults in the room are not being adults in the room. And instead of embracing Russia and weakening the alliance, and basically, instead of building an alliance of democratic countries, the Europeans want an us and them mentality. If you're not under our thumb, you're one of them. And of course, it is these childish power games are destroying the world. I like Elon Musk's idea. Let's all build starships and go our separate ways, shall we? Now, Zelensky has announced that officials from his country will be once again going to the US for arms purchases and drone production details. Has prepared a list of 90 billion. Who's paying for that? Well, it's the European taxpayer. They also received US Patriot air defense systems from Israel, with more to come. So it wasn't just Europe. Russia's decided that Europe has been provocative, but if they make any decisive action, it'll be met with a decisive response. In separate news, Lavrov is disappointed in Germany's reactionary stance and believes that Germany is returning to its not-so-pleasant past. Now, this is referring to Merkel 2.0, who can't seem to explain why a number of political candidates in the last couple of elections have been killed. They don't even report. There's been no major investigation. In most countries, if one political candidate is killed during a campaign, it'd be an uproar. But there were multiple candidates killed, and the left was silent, even when it was one of their own. That tells me the level of fascism in Europe is on the rise dramatically. But of course, fascism is in the guise of anti-fascism, of course. And you're going to say, but why would the left kill one of their own? What if the killing stopped because that one individual died? Have you ever thought about that? The radical left are a danger to society. Russia has fallen short on a vote in the UN. Of course, this is seen as punishment for its invasion of Ukraine. But of course, there's never equal punishment handed out to other countries who have engaged in aggression around the world. Now, we have reports of over 500 drones and 40 missiles being launched at Ukraine by Russia, and over a far smaller number were launched at Russia. Now, according to both Russian and Ukrainian news, there was no significant damage done to Russia by Ukraine's drones. Of course, that didn't stop Russia from launching missiles, glide bombs across the front, and missiles in various gathering places of Ukraine and concentrations of Ukrainian troops, as well as command and supply centers, telecommunications hubs, drone assembly points, and the airfields. Of course, the majority of attacks do not go reported, and oddly enough, we do have an air defense report. We shot them all down. No violent explosions reported in Kiev. Now, we do actually have allegedly a house fire related to the war, which may or may not be related to the war. Ukraine has often a habit of reporting every house fire as related to the war. Though, as you know, house fires are a daily occurrence across the world. Okay, so we've had slight changes to the buffer zone, not by much, north of Sumy, while Russia is hammering Sumy and other areas. However, nothing much north of Kupiansk has occurred, and in Kupiansk, the Russians have not advanced far. But it's not in Kupiansk itself, it's Kurkuminska. Slight advance into Kurkuminska. Nowhere else. As we go north of Lyman, nothing reported in Silvesk area. Nothing of significance has occurred, though there is fighting. The siege of Kursk continues with no advance. Elsewhere, the Russians are also stalled at Bavorsk and other areas. And as we go west, there's slight changes to the map, but nothing of significance reported. Though there was some changes to the map at Okhinov. So there is some changes to the map, but mostly today was about missiles. Now, the Financial Times has reported that Trump has spent months pressing Ukraine to secede territories. However, the US president has a shift in policy, suggesting Kiev could fight to reclaim all its territories with EU support. EU leaders believe that Trump is no longer a reliable ally, though some governments view his stance more positively. Brussels is split. the fact is, for some time, a lot of people in Europe have wanted an end to NATO. Others wanted a shift from NATO to a European army, and that's why they were courting Ukraine to provide a third of the troops. See, Britain and all the other countries, because they were broke-ass bitches, they wanted to use all the cheap manpower out of Eastern Europe as cheap labour and cheap soldiers, because the refugees have turned out to be not so cheap labour, not so friendly, and of course wanting not to fight any of Europe's battles. So Europe's in a bad position right now, in a mess of its own making, when pretty much everybody was warning them not to engage in mass migration or mass integration on a super national level. However, the left can't be told anything. But however, George Galloway represents at least the anti-war left, and of course has been punished for his stance by being arrested under the Terrorism Act, although it's believed after hours of questioning about his trip to Russia, his wife went to Russia. I don't have any details, and I don't care why he was there. All that it seems that they wanted to know if he was engaged in hostile activity. For all I know, he went to see a bunch of old colleagues. Everybody knows Galloway is a hard commie. He pretends to be a moderate and has for a long time pretended to be a moderate and gotten away with it. However, the Workers' Party and his other failed attempts, all for naught. Seriously, he did this to be provocative, okay? We all know Galloway did this to be provocative, to build attention for himself so that he can get more views for his YouTube channel. Nothing else, okay? He's a provocateur. He always is and always has been an attention whore. And it's gotten him elected to Parliament. But in reality, what has he achieved? Radicalisation of youth for his own amusement and profit. He's not a principled man of anti-war, although he represents what's left of the anti-war left in the UK. Most of the anti-war left is silent because they're only anti-war when the Tories are in power. Poland, of course, has cut cash to idle Ukrainians. Now, after announcement of state benefits to be cut, Polish president has signed a bill. The details now known public. Not all benefits are cut. Ukrainians still have the ability to stay in Poland until March 2026. However, benefits are only paid with proof of employment for at least one parent, and children must be enrolled in schools, right? Other benefits are reserved only for Ukrainians who are working. That includes the health program, prescription drugs, and other services. However, Ukrainian refugees can earn up to 50% of the minimum wage and be, with their compliance check monthly, and be eligible for some benefits. Now, changes to the legislation did allow some exemptions for those with disabilities, but their aim is tourism, Ukrainian tourism, where Ukrainians go to Poland, claim refugee status, live in hotels, don't pay their bills, don't work, stay in Poland for months, or worse, work and don't declare it. And then often they go back to Ukraine because they have travel passes. They're allowed to travel in and out of Ukraine because they bring money back with them. If they don't, then, they're kicked out of Ukraine. This is what's going on. This is the reality. Ukraine is using... This is why Zelensky is prolonging the war. It's a cash cow for him and his cronies. Border guards, of course, taking bribes. The whole system is corrupt. And Poland's sick of it. Now, most Ukrainians who have gone to Poland, to be clear, are working. They work in farms. They have day passes. They don't live. This is aimed at those who have gone to Poland as alleged refugees and don't work. And the anti-Ukrainian sentiment might be exaggerated by the number of Ukrainians who haven't paid their bills, but it seemed to be enough. I don't think it's the majority, and I think the majority of Ukrainians haven't stayed in Poland but have been relocated to other countries, where I do believe they've engaged in employment. But this is aimed at those who haven't, and it seems to be significant enough for Poles to be upset, and that's up to them. But a lot of people don't realise how the attitude of Ukrainians, because so many people just have this attitude that, oh, we have to be humble and help everybody. No, bro. You're just being scammed, okay? And it's time to grow up. Now, Russia has admitted that it's launched overnight strikes. It says it only targeted Ukrainian defense industry and airfields. Nothing really here of difference from any other launch, other than its usual round of estimates of reported losses. The reported damage it's done, including Ukrainian losses of equipment and personnel. Russia does not report its own, and the Ukrainian estimates have been ridiculed by many, saying that by Ukrainians' own estimates, they've wiped out the entire Russian army twice over and they're marching on Moscow. You know, people are sick and tired of Ukraine's lies. The Ukrainian polls are rigged, but there's nothing we can do about it because there's not enough people sharing the truth. Unless the truth starts to get more legs, these lies will continue. You'll continually be exploited. Now, there's no context to the photographs. We do not know if these drones were downed by, or missiles were downed by electronic warfare, shot down, or how many of these were air defense missiles that came back down. What goes up must come down. Most air defense missiles explode in the air, that's true, but falling debris has often set fires to roofs throughout Ukraine. Now, an hour ago, there were several, hour and a half ago, there were several attacks still continuing as Poland yet again scrambled jets to go up and down its border because it wants to flex. And a lot of Russia's, this is what Russia's talking about, being provocative. Now, on Instagram, news services have published photos showing car parks without context, damaged buildings without context, burning vehicles without context. Again, putting commentary without proof or evidence. And they always claim it's women, only women and children. But when they have a really big explosion like this... Oh, where is it? When they have a really big explosion like this, they always do it from afar. Now, these fires clearly this could be a fuel fire from at a fuel depot. But look at the size of the... But here's another thing. How many of these are the same photos before? See, look at all the bright lights. That's a lot of... It's a lot of magnesium flares. Some of those will hit the ground burning and cause fires. Look at the size of that explosion. Again, no context where it is, but it's in the heart of Kiev near the rail. So it's probably the rail hub. Or the gas depot. But again, we don't get... Look at the size of that across. So, again, Ukraine claiming, makes false claims about the lack of, only civilians are killed, only women and children are killed. Oh, but it's only a handful. But, it's any death of women and children is in wartime is regrettable. But there's no way that this is typical Zelensky. Provoke an attack, film the response, claim to be the victim. This is the left playbook over and over and over again. And this is why people have Ukraine fatigue all across Europe. Europeans aren't stupid. They know how bad things are in Ukraine. The Ukrainians are crying that they can't go home and show photos of their homes destroyed. But in reality, how many of those homes were destroyed by Ukraine and or taken off them by the government? Or what is the reality in Ukraine? The reality is somewhere between what Zelensky says and what Putin says. And because neither can be fully trusted, but I trust Zelensky as far as I can throw the little worm. He is a fat little roly-poly who probably, has not a care in the world because he's got his $384,000 a year job. Did you know he earns more than Putin? Do you know he owns more property than Putin? And here's the thing. I believe Putin has been targeting properties owned by Zelensky. But do you think Putin will be if Putin really wants to win the war, do you really think he's deliberate wasting resources attacking apartment buildings? I think most of the time they're just firing drones into Ukraine just to set off air defenses to wait, because they know the drones aren't going to make it all the way. They know the drones aren't going to make it all the way here, and they know the majority of the time the F-16s, as soon as there's a drone or a missile detected, the F-16s are going to launch. There ain't many aircraft left in Ukraine. The only ones on the ground are non-functional. Any functional aircraft is flying out into Poland or people are saying they're sick and tired of the lies. We were expecting an announcement from European leaders, but they don't seem to want to make an announcement, and they don't know what to do. They want to bail out France, they want to bail in England, they want to bail out Germany, but they can't do it during the war. And I think we're going to see a huge economic austerity package announced soon, and that's going to be the end of it. They can't keep up this economic mess for much longer. But Europe can't help itself anymore. the socialist mindset, the greedy, whether it's the greedy old folks who never saved a penny in their life and just want free handouts, particularly the school teachers retiring at 55 and living for another 30 years. They've only worked 20 years of their life and they expect to be paid for another 30 years at full wage. That's ridiculous. Macron has bought vote after vote after vote, but sooner or later, the longer they keep going left, the further into chaos and mayhem they go, and finally, maybe people will be burnt to the bone to never ever trust the left again, and to throw out the majority of these school teachers. You don't need small class sizes. That teachers don't teach. They can only lead a child they can only demonstrate. You teach yourself. You're the student and the teacher, and all you have is your will. And if you are lazy, which the vast majority of people in this world seem to be, they take the path of least resistance and they skate through school and then wonder why. Again, you also have the inverse of that, where children are overpressured to overperform. So we do have a lot of problems where, you have, a lawyer with a child and they expect them to become a lawyer and they're barely good, they barely got passing grades. Nepotism is the problem as well. Nepotism, sending their kids to uni a year after, and they get their kids to uni, and the corruption surrounding universities. But sooner or later, Ukraine war is going to, and you can see, look, you compare the size of Ukraine, it is pretty big compared to other parts of Europe. You can see why they want the territory just based on the resources alone. But unfortunately, the people in this area did not want to be part of Ukraine. That's their decision, however. When the Albanians in Kosovo rebelled, they got rewarded. These people appealed to Europe for help and to the UN and got denied. Obama, and yet Trump did very little. By the time Trump got in office, there was very little he could do. The world is going to burn because too many people, and frankly, it's both sides. This is one of those times it is both sides. Both sides have, but I mean, you can't blame the opposition. But when the right is in power, they've done very little. Trump has to do more, far more. Otherwise, the world will burn. Unfortunately, there are far too many people out there who want the world to burn because they think they're going to rise out of the ashes, a phoenix anew. Liberalism is a mental disease, folks. It has destroyed civilization after civilization after civilization, and each time it's, however, justified itself by saying, yeah, but we had technological advances and a new, better civilization arose. That's just your opinion. History will play out and show that liberalism is abject poverty and failure. It is nothing but a system of corruption where it deludes people with the phantom of freedom. And it encourages the mentally ill in order to exploit them, to ensure the wealth remains in the hands of the few. And nothing, a free market, right? And the free movement of labour and the free movement of capital is the only thing that brings down oligarchies. Because any industry that's highly profitable gets competition. And oligarchies can only exist if they have a monopoly on power and wealth. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And please support the channel. You can support me on Patreon. You can buy my books. You can buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree. You can find the link tree in the description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. See you in the next video, and bye for now.